Hi everyone, it's Carolyn from True Crime Chat with Mommy Ramblings, and I'm going to go through some of the recent videos, give my analysis that are on Kim's channel. And we did a little bit of this last night. I'm going to go through it a little bit more. I listened in depth to the Ronnie Watts and a new one about Amanda McMahon that she has on there. I'm finding it interesting that other channels are posting the Amanda McMahon as another avenue just to have some content out there of something that's been debunked. And I also find it interesting that in those in that other creator, the other creator's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that Sandy knew Nicole Atkinson first, and then she actually introduced her to Shanann. I thought they met at Thrive. And I'm thinking, and you say you know this case, you say you know this case. It's exactly like that other creator, the critical one. She doesn't know the discovery at all. She didn't even know that there was an interview with Nicole Atkinson, a video interview, an audio interview, I mean. It's just crazy. And these are the people that people are listening to, and because they'd rather focus their time on conspiracy theories or hearsay that other people post just to have a aha effect and not facts. And which is extremely interesting when Ronnie says in one of the interviews that, he's so glad Kim is dealing with the facts, not like these other people that just like to talk. Yeah, Ronnie, okay. Well, you don't have your facts straight because you don't even know the facts of the case. You're trying to distort the facts of the case. And I'm going to show just how you're doing that as I go through this analysis of your interview. So guys, follow me through on this. And sorry if I feel a little bit heated on this. I am just so upset with this man that months and months and months after this, he's Cindy Watts' mouthpiece. He's reiterating her words, and they are lies. And they are slandering a murdered woman, a woman that his son murdered. And his son murdered Celeste and Bella and Nico. And I'm just so tired of him, the lies that he says in these phone calls. Sorry, Ronnie. You are really wrong here. You just got baptized? Okay. So Ronnie says, he gets on this call with Kim and she's just going to give insight. He's a man of few words. Yeah, but he talks like a machine and mumbles a lot. And he mumbles a lot around the stuff that's really blatant lies. But he comes out and he says, I want everyone to know we support your channel 100%. We believe in what you're doing. She asks him how many times did he see Chris in North Carolina. He says Shanann came down for 6 weeks. Chris came down for the last week. When they were at Myrtle Beach, Shanann would not let Chris see his parents. And then the day before they left, they went to see Ronnie's mother in the rehab. And Shanann and Chris drove there together, and then Ronnie picked Chris up there and brought him to the house, and Shanann went back to her family's house. He said they brought him to the house, and Robert and Jamie, Robert's Jamie's husband, were there, and the other grandbabies. And he says that Chris told him that he wanted a divorce and that Shanann already knew this, and that he was already looking for 2-bedroom apartments with bunk beds. And it was the first that they had heard of it, but he said Shanann knew, all lies, and the house was already on the market, complete lies. And Kim goes, oh, really? And everyone doesn't know that. Kim, it's easy to see that's a blatant lie. The house was not on the market. Why do you spread these blatant lies? Then he said again that Chris knew what he wanted to do. He was pretty much upbeat. He wanted to get that 2-bedroom apartment, and he was talking about how he would alter his work schedule and have 1 week on with the girls, and Shanann would have 1 week, and et cetera, et cetera. And again, that she knew this. All lies. He talks about Cindy and Shanann getting into 2 altercations, the one of them being Nutgate, which he calls it, and this time he's claiming that it was plain vanilla ice cream, didn't have nothing in it, and she accused Cindy of trying to give Cece something with nuts, and they knew she couldn't have nuts. He didn't go into real big, huge things with that. That's where he left that. He said then she came 2 weekends. The other weekend, he said Cindy went to get her hair done because I guess their neighbor died and they had to go to a funeral at some time. That's what he said. And she had to go by the dealership to sign papers for a car they were buying. And then she realized she left her phone in the salon, so she had to go back. And she ended up being gone like 5+ hours. And Ronnie said that Shanann was blowing up his phone and saying that, where is Cindy? She's gone 5 hours. I'm alone with the kids. And he said, what are we supposed to watch 24/7? But I bet you what Shanann was probably saying is that you're here to see your grandchildren. And I'm sitting here alone with the kids questioning why she's there when she could be visiting with her family that actually wants to see her and actually will be around, not like Cindy that takes off 4 or 5 hours. I couldn't have Cindy have got her hair done that if it was a Sunday on Monday or whatever, she had to go that day that her grandkids are down there. I mean, that's pretty inconsiderate, Cindy, being that she's coming for the weekends to see you. Why does she have to sit alone in your little house there, twiddling her thumbs with her kids, who probably are not comfortable with all the stuff you had out there that I heard? And she's got to sit there and just wait for you when she could be visiting with her mother and her brother and her friends who really want to see her and wouldn't be taking off while she was there for 5 or 6 hours. So spin that your way, Ronnie, all you want. It's evident the way it was. They say, Kim says, what about when, you heard she was missing? Oh, this came right from Cindy's mouth. Well, I just thought she went off to punish Chris or something, just the way she is. Which is the way she is, Ronnie? When's the other time she did that? When did she ever do that? She never did that. That's not how she behaved. Maybe that's how Cindy behaves. Maybe that's why Cindy was at the hair appointment, right? To punish Shanann because she didn't like her? For what reason? To cause strife? Maybe that's how Cindy acts. Shanann didn't do that. And if you had him write that letter because you thought she was so dangerous, you would have been freaked out of your mind if that's what you really thought, because then wouldn't she hurt her kids if she was that kind of person that you said? All lies. So then they talk about Chris picking up Ronnie from the airport, and he was saying that, well, he could barely talk to him because prior to that, because that Frederick Police Department kept calling or calls were being dropped. And he said there said one thing that really didn't make sense at the time. It makes sense now. He said something like, Dad, I should have just went to that Rockies game that night. Okay. The police interview, she asked, what was redacted? It's funny that I don't buy this, not one bit, because what they said redacted would never have been redacted. Never have been redacted, because they put all the comments that Ronnie said about Shanann and everything else, and they didn't redact them. They're not going to redact these three words that Ronnie says were redacted. So total lies, I call on this. So he says that when we were talking, when he told me about where he put the girls and everything, he said, Dad, I could not put the girls with her after what she did to them. She was evil. That's what he says they redacted. And he goes over that several times in this one interview and again in the second part of it. So he's very eager to get that out. Keep putting out that narrative that Shanann is evil. Yeah, Ronnie, okay. Your camp needs to believe that. Those of us that deal with facts know the truth. He says, as for Chris not being emotional, oh, he's like me. I very seldom cry. I cried once at the memorial service we had for the girls at the gravesite, and a few weeks later when I got baptized and was hugging everyone and talking to everyone. And again, mentioned Cindy because she's always in the forefront. And that's Cindy's. Those were the only 2 times Cindy's seen me crying in the last 20 years. So at the police interview, you asked for an attorney, Kim says. At some point, did you get to go back and see Chris again? He said, nope. They took him to a hotel. He could not stay at the house. He sounds a little perturbed that he couldn't stay at the house. And he says that they wouldn't even tell him where Chris was or let him see him. And then as he was heading back to the airport, the defense attorney called and he went back to meet with the defense attorney. And the only other time they got to see him prior to the sentencing was the night before the plea deal. They got to see him on CCTV and speak to him for 30 minutes each. We've gone over those phone calls. Pertaining to if he ever got any Chris's belongings, he says Frank brought Chris's jerseys, but they didn't get anything from the girls. Well, let's go back to the Dr. Phil interview with the Rusaks when they asked they asked Ronnie if he wanted anything and from the girls, and nope. And what they wanted was Chris's jerseys, which Frank Rusak dropped off to them. It's funny how they don't mention Chris's toolbox, which they sold, okay, for money that helped Chris. And in all honesty, that toolbox, the money from that should go to the Rusak since they have a $6 million lawsuit, wrongful death suit, and Chris has not paid any of that. Which I also find interesting that now Kim has her channel monetized, and according to Social Blade at this point, and it's just started, and the way that it's growing, it's looking at probably, you know, at least $1,000 a month, and by next month that could be up significantly. Okay, if it keeps going on and she keeps posting videos that people keep watching. Now, where is that money going? Where is that money going? To the Watts? To Chris's commissary? Is Chris benefiting off that when he still has $6 million he owes to the Rusaks? I wonder, you know, follow that trail of the money. Okay, so let's see. He says he got the wallet, he never got the phone, and this is when he starts speeding up the way he's speaking, and he says it's weird. He never got the phone, and the district attorney says it sounds like he said needed it in case there was an appeal. Now, here's another instance when Kim proves she doesn't understand the law. Though she tries to say she's an investigator, she did that in another video. She says, well, that's weird because the appeal is only recent conversation. Oh my gosh. Do you know, Kim, that evidence is kept and every case can appeal, so they keep evidence, Kim? I guess you don't know that. So it's not so weird, Kim. Then Ronnie says he spoke to the assistant DA when they were doing the victims' statements, and he asked them, what do you got? What do you got? You got anything? He asked them if he would show him evidence, and he said they would not show him or tell them about evidence, and they just said, we have a theory, we have a theory. He said, and there was the same song and dance that the DA did after the sentencing. They never saw any evidence. And regarding Gene Powers, who read supposedly Ronnie's statement, Kim says, you weren't recognized as victims, and he says, no, we weren't, and not until, you know, very late in the game there. And they asked her what she was going to write, and she said, well, I'm just going to wing it. And they claimed they didn't know what she was going to write, and apparently Cindy didn't even hear it because she was so in shock that Kim called them immediately after and said, what was up with that? And Ronnie said, yeah, we were just as shocked as everybody else. You know, we were so shocked. We didn't know she was going to say that, and we don't agree with any of it. Of course, right, Ronnie and Cindy? Of course. You don't agree with anything that to paint your son as what he is, a murderer, cold-blooded, calculated murderer. So how did it feel in court seeing Chris? He said, well, it was only the second time from the time it happened. It was very hard. We still love him. It's very hard to go through this, losing the grandchildren and everything. But he's got the whole world against him, and we're the only ones he has. And we'll talk to him whenever we can. He'll call whenever he can. Sometimes because of this pandemic, he's in a lockup, but he calls whenever he can. Now, as I said, these are Cindy's words that Ronnie's speaking. They have a script, they have a narrative. Maybe they think Ronnie may be more likable than Cindy, and people will believe their lies. They're going to try anything at this point. It proves wrong as Ronnie attacks Shanann again and paints his son as a great guy. That's not going to sit well with the majority of people out there that can deal with facts, Ronnie. And he was asked again, if things were redacted from the interview with Tammy and Coder, and he doesn't give specifics on that. He talks about that she is evil. That's the only one he is saying, okay? She is evil. He goes over that again. That he said, Dad, I couldn't put her in there after what she did to them. She is evil. Now, according to the plea deal, he said when we met with Chris, we were told we couldn't discuss the case. Only one time, Cindy asked him not to accept the plea deal and fight if he didn't do this. And Chris said, Mom, I made my decision. He did not say he did it. That changes from their other interviews after the plea deal, where they said that he said, Mom, I took the plea deal because I'm responsible for this. And that's what Kim is saying when she says he took responsibility for this. He means that he had an affair and that led to this. They're really spinning this thing like you can't believe. They don't want to recognize that on that plea deal, he did confess to those murders. And we've gone through it. The other night we played what the DA said, okay, with deliberate intent, and he took responsibility and said that that is what he did. Okay, so they are really clueless. They are absolutely clueless. And he said that when he met with the defense, they said it don't matter if it's 1 or 3, meaning if it's 1 life he took or 3, it's still going to be life in prison, and they were just trying to save his life. They met with him in North Carolina and said the same thing. And the plea deal took the death penalty off the table, but Kim said, were you concerned with the death penalty? And Ronnie said, no, exactly what Cindy said. The last time they put someone to death was 30 or 40 years ago, if that, and they're not going to do it anymore, basically, is what he said. And he said, one time I spoke to D.A. Rourke, and he asked him who the father of the baby Shanann was carrying was, and the DA said Chris, and Ronnie says the only other person who was involved is also named Chris, so take it for what it's worth. I think he's talking about, again, Amanda McMahon, who's that debunked Tinder date, and she said they brought in some guy that looked like Chris, and maybe that was who she was with. And now somehow, I guess Kim is going to start spinning this that Chris guy was involved with Shanann, and that might be the father of the baby. Okay, can I debunk you guys right here? You can see in the autopsy, and the DA confirmed the DNA, Ronnie, DNA confirms that Christopher Watts, your son, is the father of Nico. So why don't you cut the crap? Okay, because this is getting so ridiculous. And you want to say people just want to talk and not deal with facts? You must be looking in a mirror. Okay, he said he did not know they were going to Wisconsin. And regarding what Chris told them up there, now where you have Kim saying he was coerced and he was forced and it wasn't given willingly, please. Okay, he said that Chris said, I just told them anything I needed to just so they would leave him alone, because Chris is so non-confrontational and he's never been confrontational. So Kim asked him, what story do you believe is the truth? And I see this is another reason I say Chris has not come out and changed this story and said that Shanann had murdered the children, because why do they keep pointing back to the first confession? Why wouldn't they say, yeah, Chris has come forward now and he's changing that? They don't say that, okay? He says this: the hurt and the pain in that boy's eyes that I saw that day, the emotions are just like me. He's not emotional. I believe him. He said, Dad, I couldn't put them with her after what she did. She is evil. I believe him. Back to the first confession, not saying that he's telling me this on the phone. He's telling me this when I went up for a visit. He's telling me this now. No, back to the first confession, which means he is not publicly saying that to them or anyone else. 35C and stuff going forward, he said it's going to be a long road, but if we find the right person to defend him or a lawyer. So I guess, they're thinking maybe Kim could do this. Okay. It's just so crazy. And then he says, but there's going to be no evidence, because whatever evidence is, it's gone. Everybody and his brother has been in that house. It's long gone. Ronnie, are you aware the defense team was in that house collecting evidence? Are you aware of that? Are you? Because there's a police cam if you're not aware of that, and you can go find it on my channel if you need to. Well, I'm sure you'll have Kim come out with 14 different videos about it, and maybe she'll thank me for pointing her in that direction. Ronnie, do you understand they clear a crime scene? They take the evidence. The evidence isn't gone, Ronnie. No, it's in a locker, it's in a room, it's over at the evidence warehouse for Weld County, wherever they store that. It's not gone, Ronnie. So stop trying to perpetuate these rumors again. Who's dealing in facts and who's not? And why so long? Well, oh yes, PTSD. He still hurts every day. It hurts every day for him and for them too. It's a long road to get a normal life, if you ever get a normal life back. Then they talk about a memorial garden with a headstone they have outside the house that they see. And she says, oh, I put the channel up 3 weeks ago. What do you think? Um, and he says, well, I like to think there's a lot out there which most people don't dive into, which you've done. The others out there, they just want to talk and talk and talk and not look at facts. Again, Ronnie looking in a mirror. Now with Amanda, she has another video and says Amanda came forward with a completely false statement. She said she had a sexual interaction with Chris at a Chick-fil-A. We've all heard this. We know that this is fake and it is phony. But she's now going to say that she's going to press charges. Now, they already asked Chris, and Chris said no. And she's like, I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but I want to press charges against them. So the false police report, she said, is against the law. Not one time did the prosecution bring charges. And here's where she puts this crazy narrative that this was put out there because they needed egregious things against Chris out there, okay, in the public. So that's the whole reason for this Tinder person, and the whole reason for Trent Bolt coming forward. And, she goes on to say that this woman can remember, she can't remember 40 sexual partners or something that she had, but she can remember Chris because she can remember his face and his tattoos, but then couldn't really talk about the tattoos and couldn't remember, his screen name really, and couldn't give his phone number that he texted from because she apparently got a new phone, right? Come on now. I'm sure the police can easily access her phone records. We're not stupid. She's been debunked. We know that. She's debunked. She's not spinning any one narrative for the prosecution as you're saying that and insinuating that. So just wanted to cut the crap on that. And it's like, again, funny because that other creator didn't even know that this stuff was even in the discovery and said something like, oh, the transcripts and stuff are different from the videos. I didn't even know that. Wow. Sandy's the one that introduced Nicole Atkinson to Shanann. Yeah, if you knew the case, you'd know that. So she says, Amanda went on Radar Online where they were doing an article about her, and that's where, it was said that Chris had tried to choke her, and you can see why the prosecution wanted that to get out there, is what Kim is saying, because it goes along with their narrative. Why didn't the prosecution charge her? So she's trying to make it look like that this Amanda's in cahoots with the prosecution, and she didn't get charged for this because she was working with them to get this narrative out there, and that she knows Nicole Atkinson because Nicole Atkinson was a manager, and they're putting in this supercuts. Okay, this is all their thing. Back in 2013, and she said that Nicole Atkinson and Shanann were best friends, and that she saw Nicole Atkinson's page about Shanann missing. Even though Detective Baumhauer said she's not competent enough to testify in court, she did say that the complexity of the case is the reason for her 1% doubt if that is Chris. And they went through like her profile and chats that she was making in a sleuth group. And she said she could personally attest to Chris cheating, and was asked not to share anything by the Weld County Sheriff's Office. She said she did not know anything, but she knew that he was cheating and she was not the one that he was having a long-term relationship with. And she said, let's just say there's probably a lot of us. She said, I should not have said anything because I knew him, and we went out a couple of times. My role in all of this is just to testify that he was a cheater. And Kim says, take that how you want it. What does she mean by my role in this? She's saying, well, that 100% means she's been set up by the prosecution to get this narrative out there, is what she's saying. And that Amanda says, they just wanted my text messages. And Kim says she had 0 text messages and only had that photo of that Chris guy. Kim showed the photo of this Chris guy and went through his profile and showed that. And she said that someone reached out to that guy from one of the groups back then, and they asked, if he wanted to come forward. I can just imagine who it was. Just if he wanted to come forward and talk about things, and he said, I have nothing to do with it, and I'm ignoring it. I appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to clear my name. I hope she gets the help she needs. And he said he was a former police officer, and he said there were no words to describe what Chris did. If people in a Facebook group can find out she's a liar, why couldn't the DA do that as well? Kim says the DA knew she was a liar. Kim, stop spinning your false narrative. And let's see, in situations where people go forward and with all these allegations against them and what they're saying, she said you would think that DA would come out and say it wasn't true. They did come out and say it wasn't true. It was told it was debunked. How do you think we all know that it was debunked? Then she talks about other leaks. And when she was asked why is she exposing this all on YouTube, she said, because this makes no sense. She said, it's going to be too late after the 35C because you can't bring this all into court. So what's the point? If you can't bring it into court and you're going to do this on YouTube, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to taint a jury? Well, they're not going to paint those jurors. So what's your point in doing this? That what? Somebody else is going to pick this up? She said the news won't pick it up yet, so that's probably what they're trying to do. And there's no reason not to blast it. And there's, forget the crime part of it, she said. The legal injustice. Oh my goodness, Kim, the legal injustice there. So yeah, she goes on with that. And that's in another video she did on someone's Patreon that was released. And it's just, oh my gosh, Kim, just stop this. But Ronnie saying that stuff, Ronnie, how can you live with yourself? How can you sleep at night? Really, how? Okay, but I don't know. That's for you. That's for you. It's pretty sick and it's pretty twisted. It's pretty disgusting if you ask my opinion. And that is my opinion. And Kim, really despicable stuff here. But anyway, that's it for right now on this. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.